The Grand Prix scene moves to Zolder, a circuit whose compact 2.6 mile, 118 mile an hour lap, set in lush farming country midway between Brussels and Liège, is very, very hard on brakes. A circuit that demands a nimble car and one where the turbo cars are not at their best. And we saw that in practice, where despite the fact that the Ferraris, the turbocharged Ferraris, were very quick indeed, it was not a Ferrari that was in pole position, it was the Williams of this man, Gilles Reutemann, the Argentine driver who has been doing so brilliantly well this season. And there, the man who is in second position on the grid is Nelson Piquet, who has already won this year, and there is Didier Pironi, the Ferrari driver. And perhaps if the camera gives us a chance, I think it's going to, we'll be able to have a look at the distinctive turbocharged engine of Pironi's Ferrari. It's a 1.5 litre V6 engine, and you can look down on it now. There is the twin exhaust pipes leading from the wastegate, and there is Alan Jones, the reigning world champion, who has had one victory here this year, but is only in third position in this year's World Championship, behind Piquet and the man who is leading, Jones's teammate, Gilles Reutemann. With good weather conditions here at Zolder, sun is shining, as you can see for yourselves, shining on Eddie Cheever, the young American, although he's lived most of his life in Italy, and shining too on Nigel Mansell, the brilliant British driver in the Lotus team for the first time this year. This is only his 6th Grand Prix and he's 10th fastest in practice. Giving us a look there at a second kind of engine, the Cosworth V8 Ford engine, and another different engine powers this man's car, Jacques Lafitte, because he's driving in very confined circumstances one of the Talbot Matra cars. And we've had news, incidentally, that the mechanics are intending to protest, and the drivers too. The drivers are protesting. In fact, as I talk to you, there's a double protest going on, and this is sensational here at Zolder, because the drivers are walking away from their cars to protest about the fact that in their view they don't get enough of a say in Grand Prix racing. And that was all triggered off and supported by the fact that the mechanics too are protesting, because Reutemann inadvertently hit a mechanic in the pit lane in practice, and the mechanics are protesting about the fact that they believe there's not enough room. So there, reading from the bottom upwards, is the grid. Reutemann, number 2. He has a number which indicates he's fastest, number 1. Piquet is second fastest, Pironi is third fastest, Patrese is fourth fastest, Alan Jones is only sixth fastest, alongside John Watson, fifth fastest in the new Marlboro MP4. And the caption now is showing us the World Championship positions. As you can see, Reutemann 3 points ahead of Piquet, who is 4 points ahead of Jones. Jones 8 points ahead of Patrese, and those 4 really are the only ones who are effectively in the World Championship running at the moment. Although with this race here at Zolder, there are still to follow a lot of Grand Prix, so there can be some big changes. And now the warm-up lap has been completed, and the drivers are readying now for the race. There is Jean-Pierre Jabouille, the French driver, and this is going to be the start. The warm-up lap has been completed, and they're strangely long-winded about actually getting the grid organised. There is Siegfried Starr threading his way through the grid in the second of the 2 arrows. You can see Reutemann clapping his hands. That means to say he's got his engine running. He's worried about overheating. And look, Nelson Piquet, there's Alan Chalice. That's the chief mechanic of the Williams team, speaking to Reutemann, who is obviously disturbed because Piquet is not in position. You can see the Brabham mechanic on the left standing in Piquet's position, wondering where his driver is. In the background there's one of the Renaults, in fact the only Renault, Alain Prost, because René Arnoux didn't qualify, and Frank Williams leans over Reutemann's car. Reutemann shows him the time, indicates when the race is going to start. Reutemann is obviously getting very, very agitated about the fact that his Williams car engine, the Ford V8, is overheating. And this is a very real problem for drivers, and I cannot understand why the grid is taking so long to form up. They should have come through virtually. There is Siegfried Sturr shuffling his car about, and still with Pironi behind Reutemann. Still Patrese is not there. That's Jacques Lafitte in the blue Talbot. Patrese, there is Patrese. I'm sorry, I meant Piquet isn't there, but here is Piquet. Slip of the tongue, I apologise. And now Patrese too is agitated. Look at Patrese, and the Brabham mechanics are going to push Piquet's car back, and I think that Patrese has stalled his engine. This is more than mere agitation about overheating. Patrese has stalled his engine, yes, and there's the mechanic. He's getting over the air bottle. He's going to try and restart Patrese's car. There's the air bottle going down. Patrese waving his arms to indicate to the drivers behind him, in case the race starts, that his car engine is stalled. It started. The mechanic's gone down behind his car, and Siegfried Sturr has smashed into the back of Patrese's car, and he's hit the mechanic. You can see the mechanic lying on the ground. This is absolutely appalling. A disastrous start. And the poor unfortunate Siegfried Sturr is beside himself with agitation, as well he might be. That mechanic looks to me as though he's badly hurt. This is a rerun. Look at Sturr's car coming through, and he smashes straight into the back of his teammate Patrese's car. We're still on a rerun with Piquet leading away, followed by Reutemann. But the point about the race at the present moment, as the replay continues, is what is going to happen. Are they going to keep the race running? Because at the start and finish point on the grid, there is Patrese's car, there is Sturr's car, there is the stricken mechanic. I can look out of my box and I can see all sorts of activity. The ambulance has come up very quickly indeed. There are officials there all round the course, but the incredible thing is that this Belgian Grand Prix is still running. The yellow flags are being waved, but meantime on the far side of the course, on the Terlamen, which is not so far away from the end of the lap, the competitors are continuing as the ambulance pulls away, and they're streaming now through the Jackie X chicane, and Piquet goes through in the lead, and they're making no attempt to stop the race, with Pironi second, Reutemann third. Jones waves his arm. There's John Watson, who does the same. The drivers are very worried. They're waving their arms, and the reason they're doing it, the Sura goes onto the grass. The reason they're waving their arm is to indicate to the drivers behind them that they're going to change direction. They were not waving at the officials, they were waving to their compatriots. And now Eddie Cheever is waving. He's extremely worried. They're slowing down. It looks to me, and the drivers have voluntarily stopped, and now the cars are being prepared again for a restart of this so far absolutely disastrous Belgian Grand Prix. The refueling and tyres, because although the sun is shining, it's quite dull to my left, and I can see rain clouds, and it's not inconceivable that these very heavily treaded rain tyres of the kind that you're looking at now could be required later on. Well, we'll know about the answer to that, but meantime there is going to be a restart of this 70-lap Belgian Grand Prix of 1981, and that's a distance of 185.4 miles. Incidentally, the lap record is held by Jacques Lafitte from last year, 1 minute 20.9, and that's a speed of 117.8 miles an hour. Mario Andretti's Alfa Romeo, that is. Well, a terrible beginning for the Belgian Grand Prix as Reutemann drives away, followed by Piquet and Didier Pironi, the French driver in the scarlet Ferrari. They are going round now the Sterrewacht, and in the background at the top of your picture you can see the Albert Canal, which runs along part of this course. They go round the Sterrewacht into the canal turn, the long sweeping right-hander that they are in now. Then there is a short straight. They come down into third gear for the right-hander at Bianchi, which you can see Piquet has gone round. Reutemann, followed by Pironi, is going round. Now they go along a straight and then into a very demanding chicane, a left and a right. Don't forget that this is the warm-up lap. This is not the start of the race. They would be going a lot quicker than this, of course, were it to be the start of the race. They're going round now through the chicane, warming up their tyres again, because everything has cooled down in the 45-minute gap that there was between the stopping of the first part of the race, where they only did a couple of laps or so, and then the drivers slowed down and stopped the race themselves, and this soon-to-be restart. From the chicane, they go up into the double right-hander at the Terlamen, which they are at now. Then it's fourth gear, down into third, down into second for the right-hander, the right-angled bend at Boulderberg, which you see them from our helicopter shot going round, or you did. And now into the Jochen Rindt curve, up to the Jackie X chicane, and from there up to the grid. And let us hope and pray, with Reutemann on the right, Piquet on the left, Pironi behind them, John Watson, that we will have a better start. And you will notice that not only is Riccardo Patrese's arrows a non-starter, but also, of course, the man who smashed into Patrese's unfortunate mechanic, and that was Siegfried Stohr. And we've had the good news, incidentally, that the mechanic had 2 broken legs, a broken shoulder, and his head has been cut, but as far as we know, nothing worse than that, although that is quite bad enough. The start, 70 laps. Reutemann leads away. Pironi's going to challenge on the left. Pironi's going through to lead. Piquet is third. Watson is fourth. Jones is fifth. Villeneuve is sixth as they go into the left-hander at Sterrewacht on lap 1, down towards the canal turn. And it's Pironi. Didier Pironi, the Frenchman in the 1.5 litre turbocharged Ferrari, as he did at Imola, is now leading the Belgian Grand Prix. Reutemann second, Piquet, Watson, Jones, Villeneuve, Lafitte is in 7th place. And Nigel Mansell, the British driver in the Lotus, is in 8th position, and Alain Prost in the Renault is last. 24th and last. 24 competitors started. Through the chicane. Nobody gone off on the chicane on lap 1, where the bunching was likely to be the worst of the race, and that is a very good thing indeed, to put it mildly. And Pironi still leads as he goes up to the Terlamen and round it, braking hard. And the order is Pironi, Reutemann, Piquet, Jones passing Watson, then Villeneuve, Lafitte, Rosberg, De Angelis and Eddie Cheever. And where has Alain Prost? Where is Alain Prost? He was last on the previous corner. He's not in sight on this one. They complete the lap, and it's still the Ferrari, Pironi. Then the Williams of Carlos Reutemann, followed by Piquet. Those are the first 3. And it looks already in this race as though Ferrari, who have handling deficiencies but enormous engine power superiority, are going to set the pace. And the man to do it, Didier Pironi. We're looking now at Nelson Piquet in 3rd position. I can't tell you at the moment who's in 4th place because I can't see this part of the course from my commentary box. And that's the answer. Alain Prost. Alain Prost into the pits. The Frenchman, Arnoux, failed to qualify. And Prost turned out not in the new Renault 30, which everybody was expecting him to do, but the old Renault 20, and it looks as though he's in trouble too. Into the pits on lap 2. And it's still very close. Reutemann now right with Pironi. There's the race leader, number 28, Ferrari, Pironi, followed by number 2, Carlos Reutemann, the Argentine driver. And you will recall that Reutemann won in South Africa, which was a non-championship event this year, and he won in Brazil. And Carlos Reutemann is in 2nd place in the is leading the championship. Piquet, Jones goes through, Watson, Lafitte, Villeneuve. Well, it may have been a tragic opening to the Belgian Grand Prix, but this restart for the full 70 lap distance is something else altogether. These early laps are absolutely superb because see the way Carlos Reutemann, Piquet and Jones are closing right up on Pironi. Behind them, John Watson in the red car, Lafitte in the blue one. Then it's Villeneuve and Keke Rosberg well up in the Fittipaldi car behind Villeneuve. Look for the Ferrari, there it is, and there is Rosberg behind him, and behind Rosberg it's Nigel Mansell, then it's Eddie Cheever, then it's De Angelis and Sura and Jean-Pierre Jabouille, Andretti and Giacomelli, Serra, Hector Ribach, and Ginzani brings up the rear, and Alain Prost is clearly out of the race, and there are the leaders. Weather conditions still perfect. You can see from the shadows on the cars that the sun is shining. Alan Jones coming up to try and take Piquet, who is in third position and failing. Through to complete another lap. Pironi leads, still Reutemann second, still Piquet third, Jones fourth. Watson is in fifth position. Now watch the handling of the Ferrari as it goes round the left-hander at Sterrewacht. On towards the canal turn. Piquet jostling for position, denying Jones the line, keeping up close behind Reutemann, who is second. So it's Ferrari leading. Williams car second. Brabham car third. There is the Williams of Alan Jones, the world champion. Watson's Marlborough MP4, only its second race. He raced it first at Imola. And they're not getting at all spread out. It's into lap 3, and even the tail enders are still very well in touch with the race, and that's good. This 2.65 mile circuit at Zolder is a very tight circuit, and that now you look down from the helicopter and you see that Pironi is starting to build up a lead. Watch, it's very interesting because the British Brabham and Williams Ford-powered cars handle much better under braking and steer much better than the Ferrari. But Pironi has got the power advantage, and when he gets to a straight bit, as he is doing now, he can put his foot down and drive away from Reutemann, Piquet, Jones. It's still Watson. Out go the boards, indicating to the drivers who they are being held out for, what their position is and how far they are ahead of the man behind them and behind the man in front of them. Pironi leads at the canal turn. Just clips the grass with his rear wheel. They are absolutely right on the ragged edge, all four of them. This is 10/10 driving. They're on full tanks. As their cars get lighter, as the petrol load decreases, so they will start to go faster. There's Watson, followed by Lafitte, who is sixth. Pironi. Watson and Lafitte, fifth and sixth. We haven't had, I thought, and Jones trying to go through inside Piquet and failing. He locked up his offside front wheel as he did so, and you saw blue rubber smoke pour off his tyre. He won't have stopped the wheel enough to have flatted the tyre, as they say, and caused the wheel to go out of balance. But if he does it much more, he certainly will. Alan Jones is trying very hard. There's the confirmation. Alan Jones fastest so far, 1 minute 24.6, and that's just about 4 seconds outside the lap record. And that's caused that comparative slowness, and I emphasise comparative, by the fact that not only are the cars on full tanks, but that unlike last year, they have no skirts on the sides of the cars between the front and rear wheels, which increase the downforce and increase the grip on the tyres, and they are therefore that much slower. And those skirts rulings, as they were at Imola, have been very, very strictly implemented here at Zolder. Pironi. Reutemann going through. And Lafitte pouring rubber smoke off his tyre. Reutemann second, Piquet third, Jones fourth, Watson fifth, Lafitte sixth, and 3 seconds separating the first and sixth men. A very, very close Belgian Grand Prix. And when these Ferraris, and you're looking at Pironi in the lead now, start to get to some of the faster circuits, I don't think anybody is going to see the way they went, because they are suffering a disadvantage here at Zolder. It's not an ideal circuit for a turbo car, and Pironi, who won the Belgian Grand Prix last year, is driving magnificently. Although last year he was not in a Ferrari, he was in a Ligier with a Ford V8 engine. Watson and Lafitte still 5th and 6th, and still very much in touch with the 4 flying cars, metaphorically speaking, in front of them as they come up to the chicane. And it's still Pironi with Reutemann trying to find a way by, Piquet behind Reutemann, Jones keeping his station, Watson and Lafitte. Then there's Villeneuve in 7th position, and that's Nigel Mansell in 8th position. Nigel Mansell in 8th place. A marvellous drive, because this is only Nigel Mansell's 6th Grand Prix in the Lotus 80, and something flying off one of the cars there. It looked to me like something coming off the back of Jones's car, and Watson clips the chicane there, throws up dust. There was a lot of trouble in the Renault 5 race earlier today. A lot of cars were going off, and if you go across that chicane, it really throws up the dust and obliterates the vision of the driver behind you. Caused a lot of trouble in earlier races. Up to the chicane again. Let's see if it happens this time. Pironi, Reutemann, Piquet, Jones, Watson, Lafitte, Villeneuve in 7th place, and Nigel Mansell still in 8th position. A superb drive for the Birmingham man. Only his 6th Grand Prix. Reutemann coming out of Pironi's slipstream and trying to take him. Reutemann holds the line. Reutemann has to drop back. You could get changes any second. Any one of these 4 drivers has only got to put a foot wrong, miss his braking point, miss a gear, and he will instantly lose 1, if not 2 places to the drivers behind him. It's that close. And Jones is going faster. Alan Jones is the quickest man on the circuit, 1 minute 24.59, and that's just under 5 seconds slower than the lap record. Streaming down now past the Albert Canal on the way to Bianchi. Beautiful weather conditions, been just like this in practice. And Alan Jones closing right up on Piquet there, trying to get through and take 3rd position, and he's right up and almost alongside Piquet, but Piquet brakes very late for the chicane and they go through. There's Watson behind in 5th position, Lafitte 6th, there's Villeneuve coming through 7th, Nigel Mansell still 8th, and there is only 7 seconds now, less than 7 seconds, between the 1st and 8th men. That's how close it is in this Belgian Grand Prix. And Reutemann tries again, but there's no way he's going to get through. And all the time, you see, Pironi is using his speed advantage, and he's slower on the corners than the cars behind him, but they can't get past. And because of that, if you look closely, you'll see that Watson and Lafitte, and there they are, coming round the right-hander into the straight, out of the Jackie chicane. Watson 5th, Lafitte 6th, there they go, are closing up on the 4 cars in front of them. The first 6, virtually together. And Reutemann's coming through to try and take Pironi. And Piquet's going through. Change of position, first change of position we've had in the top 6 places. And Nelson Piquet goes through and passes Carlos Reutemann and moves up into 2nd position. And Alan Jones is doing the same thing. Alan Jones is through into 3rd position. Reutemann down to 4th. That's exactly what I said could happen as Jean-Pierre Jabouille comes into the pits in the Talbot Matra. This unfortunate Frenchman, who in race after race when he was with the Renault team last year, retired, and he's not at all happy in the Talbot Matra in this race, and Pironi leads. Now Piquet's with him. Jones third, Reutemann fourth, Watson fifth, number 26 Jacques Lafitte in sixth position. And I remind you, those of you who are Grand Prix enthusiasts, that we have the situation now at the front, there it is, that we had in the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, which was the last Grand Prix. Didier Pironi from France, number 28, there he goes, leading number 5 Nelson Piquet in the Brabham, exactly as he did at San Marino. And Nelson Piquet harried Pironi every inch of the way, as he's doing now at San Marino, kept showing him his front wheels, and they'll be big in the mirrors of Didier Pironi, and so Alan Jones is big in the mirrors too of Nelson Piquet, because they're absolutely together, and Alan Jones coming right up alongside Piquet as they go into the chicane. And Piquet, Pironi, there he goes, and John Watson's doing it. John Watson across the dirt at the chicane. Villeneuve drives through it. Mansell closes up a bit, and that looks to me like Chico Serra. It's Chico Serra, the Brazilian driver in the Fittipaldi car, into the pits, and that's De Cesaris, Andrea De Cesaris, and that's Piquet. That's Nelson Piquet. He's gone off. I can't see where it is. This is absolutely sensational on lap 11 out of 70. Nelson Piquet, the brilliant Brazilian driver who won the Argentine Grand Prix and the San Marino Grand Prix. He has won the last 2 Grand Prix, was in second position, still is for that matter, in the World Championship, but is very clearly out of the Belgian Grand Prix and has thereby blown at least 6 points, which he would have got for second place, which he was in. And if he'd held that position, he would have had 6 World Championship points out of the race. Oh, what disappointment he must be feeling. A very disconsolate Nelson Piquet as we look down from the helicopter, and the leader now still Pironi, followed by Alan Jones, the world champion. Lafitte is up to 4th place, Watson to 5th, Villeneuve is in 6th position, and that means Nigel Mansell will be 7th. Pironi still leads. There is the confirmation. After lap 10, Pironi, Piquet, Jones, Reutemann 4th, Watson 5th, and Jacques Lafitte in 6th position, and here they come. The first 4 again. Jacques Lafitte is closing up on them. On the first 3, Pironi, Jones, Reutemann, Ferrari, Williams, and the blue Ligier Matra of Jacques Lafitte, who has won 4 Grand Prix in his career. Jabouille, there he goes, is out of the pits and is being caught and about to be lapped by the 4 leaders. Well, he moves over at the left-hander at Sterrewacht and lets them go through, and Jones is through. Alan Jones takes the lead, and Reutemann, something's wrong with Pironi. What a race this is turning out to be. This is the 3rd leader that we've had. No, Pironi down. 3rd position. Well, first of all, Pironi led, and Jacques Lafitte is shaking his fist as they drive towards the chicane, shaking his fist at Didier Pironi. So the race started, Pironi led all the way, and now Alan Jones has moved through into the lead to become the 2nd leader in this Belgian Grand Prix of 1981. And now we've got a familiar sight as Jacques Lafitte is right on the gearbox of the Ferrari of Didier Pironi. We have the familiar sight of 2 Saudia Leyland Williams cars in 1st and 2nd positions. The reverse situation of that which we had in Brazil, where you will recall Carlos Reutemann was the leader and Alan Jones just patiently sat behind him, waiting for Reutemann to move over at the end of the race and let Alan Jones, the team leader, take up his contracted rightful position of leading at the end of the race if the 2 of them were in the first 2 places. Well, it didn't happen. Reutemann didn't move over, and Alan Jones vowed he wouldn't let that happen again. And so he's now out in front, number 1 in the lead, world champion Alan Jones, number 2, Carlos Reutemann in 2nd place. And Reutemann, number 2, is leading this year's World Championship. There goes Lafitte, 3rd. Pironi is still in 4th place. De Cesaris is still in the pits. And seemingly out of the race. Incidentally, De Cesaris, yes, he's getting out of his car, getting out of his McLaren M29. He wasn't driving the new Marlboro MP4, like his teammate John Watson is. John Watson is in fifth. And there is something wrong with the back of Jones's car. That's the 2nd time I've noticed that. When the suspension goes right down on that bump, something is flying up from the back of the car. Jones leads, Reutemann 2nd, Lafitte 3rd. And Watson in 4th position. You can look how close they are on at the end, lap 15, as Nelson Piquet walks back to the pits to report, no doubt, to Alistair Caldwell what happened. He must have just lost the front of the car, lost tyre adhesion, and the car must have just slid off. I find it very difficult to believe that Nelson Piquet made a mistake. Jean-Pierre Jabouille, that's not Lafitte. Take no notice of the caption. It's Jean-Pierre Jabouille, and that is Ghinzani. That's the young Italian driver, Pier Carlo Ghinzani, in the Osella car. It's his first Grand Prix drive, and he, like Nelson Piquet, has gone off. Number 1 leads Jones. Number 2, 2nd, Reutemann. Look at the gap before the 3rd place man, Jacques Lafitte, comes through, number 26, and somehow or other Ghinzani has got his car restarted. He must have done it on the air starter, because I don't think the marshals could have got enough traction to have push-started him, and if they did, he will be disqualified anyway. Alan Jones going quicker than ever. He's right in the groove now. He's settled down into his rhythm. 1:23.7 compared with the lap record of 1:20.8. So he's just about 3 seconds outside lap record time. And I'm sure we are not going to see a lap record in this Belgian Grand Prix this year. Jacques Lafitte, the man who holds it, is in 3rd position. And I remind you again, the reason that the speeds are slower, look at it! That's it again at exactly the same point. A great shower of something coming up from the back of Jones's car. While I've been talking, I've been trying to figure out what it could possibly be, and I just don't know. It's white. It's some kind of white substance that's coming up, and I can't think of anything that would cause that. It can't be fiberglass, but it's a bit worrying anyway, and Reutemann's car doesn't seem to be doing it. Alan Jones, Reutemann. Well, the lap speeds, of course, are down on 1980. They were quicker, 1:23.4. Jones is going quicker all the time. Jones is off! Jones is off into the barrier. While I was talking about that, while I was saying Jones was going faster than ever, off he goes. It looks as though the course must be much slippier, and Jones hopping. He's putting his foot on the ground, so I don't think he's broken his ankle, but my goodness, that was absolutely sensational. Jones's Williams car slid off the course. Like Piquet, I do not believe that Jones made a driver error. This is a replay. Let's have a look and see what happens. Jones going into the right-hander at Bianchi. He goes out towards the edge, and right over, he goes over the curbing, straight into the Armco barrier. A great flash of sparks, a shower of tyres, very strategically placed to absorb the shock. And whoever placed them there deserves a medal. That was a beautiful bit of placing, because that's undoubtedly saved Jones from injury. And congratulations to the Belgian Grand Prix authorities. They've placed a crane at this point. They must have been expecting trouble, and already the sling is out. The hook is being connected up. The sling is through the roll bar of Jones's Williams, and that's an ideal place to connect it, because there's plenty of strength there. The marshals throwing the front aerofoil and bits of shattered fiberglass behind the Armco barrier. And now Jones's Williams car is going to be craned off the circuit, out of the way of the other competitors, as now Carlos Reutemann, the third leader in the Belgian Grand Prix of 1981, goes through, and he has a very convincing lead over Jacques Lafitte now, as Alan Jones's shattered Williams car is craned off the circuit. And it's a very long time. In fact, I can't recall a Williams car ever being involved in a crash like that. It's a sad sight to see one of these Williams cars, which have dominated racing for the last over 2 years, being removed like this. And look at that near side front and the shock that the monocoque has absorbed, and Alan Jones is comparatively unhurt. We've had a message that he's okay, except that he's twisted his ankle and got a bit of a burn on one leg, I suspect from it rubbing against the monocoque. So Carlos Reutemann is leading, and now in second place Jacques Lafitte, with Nigel Mansell in third position. Reutemann then, and that's after 20 laps. Jacques Lafitte up into second place. Nigel Mansell in third position. Watson fourth, Villeneuve fifth, De Angelis in sixth position. Slower lap speeds than last year, of course, because of the fact that the cars have got no skirts, which last year increased the downforce and enabled the tyres to grip better, the cars to corner faster, and therefore to do each circuit quicker, but not incidentally to be any faster down the straight. It didn't affect their straight line performance. It did, the skirts that is, affect their cornering performance and their total lap speeds. Carlos Reutemann, and the sensation of the race now, as we watch Carlos Reutemann, and you can observe world champion material at work. I say world champion material because although Reutemann is leading the championship this year, he finished in third position last year behind Alan Jones, his teammate who won the championship, and Nelson Piquet, who finished in second place. Reutemann on his way, but I can tell you that from my commentary box I can see something that you can't, and that is the terrific battle that is developing between Jacques Lafitte, who is in second position, and Nigel Mansell, you saw from the caption, who is in third position. And it's less than 10 seconds between them now, as Carlos Reutemann goes through, leaving the chicane, leaving a clear track behind him, and that gives you an idea of the lead that Carlos Reutemann has got over Jacques Lafitte. In fact, in terms of time, it is a whisker over, 21 seconds. 39-year-old Carlos Reutemann from the Argentine, who lives at Cap Ferrat in France in his 15th year of Grand Prix racing, and actually his 134th. But there's Lafitte, and there is Nigel Mansell getting ahead of number 31 Ginzani. Look at this, tremendously close, and then behind them it's Watson, Villeneuve and De Angelis, and there is Hector Ribac and Eddie Cheever. So we're now with the places behind as Mark Sura goes through. John Watson in fourth position. In fifth position is Gilles Villeneuve, followed by Elio De Angelis. I remind you that Nigel Mansell is in third position, Lafitte is second, and there is Carlos Reutemann, the leader. And this wonderful scrap developing behind, and that is Michele Alboreto, the new boy to Formula One Grand Prix racing in the Tyrrell, going through. And yes, that was what I suspected. The producer was waiting for the leader, and here he is, number 2, Carlos Reutemann, on his way, if he can keep it up, to his second Grand Prix win of 1980. No, his third Grand Prix win, his second World Championship win, and one has to make that distinction, unfortunately, this year, because Carlos Reutemann won the South African Grand Prix, which did not count for World Championship points this year because of the involved political squabbling which was going on at the time between FISA, the governing body of motorsport, and FOCA, the Formula One Constructors Association. But Reutemann then went on and won the Brazilian Grand Prix and got himself 9 World Championship points. There is Lafitte. Now the next car, no, we've changed and we look at Reutemann. I was going to say you would be able to see the gap between Lafitte in second place and Nigel Mansell in third. Carlos Reutemann on his victorious way. And the only thing that can stop Carlos Reutemann now is the same sort of thing that happened to Alan Jones, going off the course. There is something else, of course. There are 2 other things theoretically. One of them is that Carlos Reutemann will make a mistake, which I judge to be extremely unlikely. The other is that something will happen to his car in terms of breakdown, and that is also unlikely, because Reutemann is a member of the Williams team, which is legendary for its mechanical reliability, and that's proven by the fact that Reutemann, the man we're looking at now, has finished 14 Grand Prix successively in the points, and this will be his 15th if he finishes, and 14 is an all-time Grand Prix record. 15 would be incredible. There is Lafitte in second place. Now, maybe we'll see how far Mansell is behind Lafitte in third position. That's the Talbot Matra of the lap record holder, Jacques Lafitte. Coming up to the Jackie Ickx chicane, left and right. And there's the Fittipaldi again of Chico Serra, the Brazilian driver, the compatriot of Emerson Fittipaldi, the double world champion, who is now managing the team, and that's Mansell. Now we see Nigel Mansell, and hopefully we'll be able to see how far Jacques Lafitte is ahead of him. Nigel Mansell, the British driver, number 12 in the Lotus 81, and there you just see Jacques Lafitte, and it's certainly, as Jacques Lafitte goes round the left-hander, out of the Boulderberg, it's considerably less than 10 seconds, which it was not so very long ago. That's Villeneuve. There is Mansell. A very good shot of the Lotus 81. And this is just to show you how well Mansell is driving as we look at Lafitte followed by Alboreto. And there is Mansell. To tell you how well Mansell is driving, he's in the old, comparatively old, Lotus 81 because they've had to bring it back out of semi-retirement due to the fact that the new Lotus 88 has been disqualified from racing. And while they build up a new car, De Angelis and Mansell are in the old 81. There's Reutemann leading. So the positions now in the Belgian Grand Prix seemingly set, although the big question is, can Nigel Mansell catch that was Jabouille going through there. Can Nigel Mansell catch Jacques Lafitte, who is in second position? The places at the front anyway seem comparatively fixed, with Carlos Reutemann leading, Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot Matra in second place. There's Reutemann going through. Nigel Mansell in third position. John Watson is in fourth place. Villeneuve in the Ferrari is fifth. And he's got Elio De Angelis right behind him. Didier Pironi has slipped down to seventh position. There is something clearly wrong with the Ferrari. And Reutemann passes Jabouille, who has been into the pits, of course. The Belgian Grand Prix is confirming that we are going to have a vintage year of Grand Prix racing in 1981, because we've seen a magnificent tussle for the lead, particularly in the opening stages. The tragedy, of course, is that battle for the lead had to happen in a restarted race due to the tragic coming together of Siegfried Starr's arrows and Riccardo Patrese's arrows, with the unfortunate arrows mechanic sandwiched between them. And I say again, because it's very much worth repeating, that as far as we know, the mechanic's personal injuries are confined to 2 broken legs, a broken shoulder, which under the circumstances is miraculously light punishment. It is a miracle that he wasn't killed. And after 30 laps, look at the time intervals with Reutemann in the lead from Lafitte, Mansell third, Watson fourth, Villeneuve in the Ferrari fifth, Elio De Angelis in sixth position. So not only is Mansell in the old Lotus 81 third, but Elio De Angelis is in the top six as well. And Colin Chapman, the Lotus team owner, must be absolutely delighted with that. And so he should be. Reutemann. Well, I can look out across the circuit from my commentary box as Reutemann goes past the water, and that is in the canal turn. There's the canal in the background. You can just see a flash of the light shining on the water. I can tell you that everybody is well spread out around the circuit now. There's still a good number of competitors on the track as one of the Alfa Romeos goes through. And that's madness, a photographer crossing the track. I can never understand that. That always happens at Belgium and never anywhere else. And Jabouille is confirming the fact, in my opinion, that he has some sort of a jinx on him. He's a very capable driver and a very skilled development engineer, but he never seems to be able to finish a race. Last year he had dreadful luck in the Renault, and that luck is continuing this year, because it looks to me as though with Jean-Pierre Jabouille in the pits again, he's probably out of the race as Reutemann goes through, and yet another photographer crosses the track, and Reutemann is going faster now than Jones was. 1 minute 23.3 is a new fastest lap, but well outside the lap record of 1:20.8. That's Ghinzani. There is Mario Andretti, the ex-world champion of 1978, the man from Nazareth in Pennsylvania, Mario Andretti, in the Alfa Romeo, having left Lotus, and is about to be lapped by Carlos Reutemann as they come through to complete another lap, and Reutemann's going to go and take him on the inside. No, he's not. Mario Andretti will have none of it. Now perhaps Reutemann can get past the Alfa Romeo, the V12 Alfa Romeo, as they come out of the canal turn. This is lap 41 in this 70-lap race, and Reutemann is going to take him now. That was a lovely bit of foxing, because Reutemann went to take Andretti on the right. Andretti moved over to the right to block him. Reutemann flicked his steering to the left and woof, past Andretti on the other side. And look at the gap he's already pulled out in only a few hundred yards. A vintage bit of Grand Prix driving from a man who has driven in 134 Grand Prix, Carlos Reutemann, passing a man who has driven in 115 Grand Prix, Mario Andretti. Two very, very experienced men. And we look down on Reutemann. Very good helicopter work. And that's one of the Williams mechanics. And he's going to hold out a signal board. Let's see what it says 29 laps to go, and you have 17 seconds lead as Jean-Pierre Jabouille comes out of the pits. There's Reutemann. And down goes the signal. So Reutemann knows he's still got 29 laps to go. He knows he's got 17 seconds lead. That is, in modern Grand Prix terms, this is Reutemann, a very, very comfortable lead. It means that Reutemann can take it easy on the braking, not go too wide on the corners as Alan Jones did, and this is where Jones went off. See the loose soil on the left. It means that Reutemann can drive his own race, just come down a few hundred revs on the engine, conserve the engine, conserve the brakes, conserve the tyres. He can afford to lose a few fractions of a second on each lap with a 17-second lead, and the distance that he's got to go, 29 laps, and know that he can still win. And that matters a great deal to Reutemann. He hasn't got all that long to go before he retires. He's 39 years old, and like every Grand Prix Formula One driver, he wants to win the World Championship. There are the positions, no changes. Watson 4th, Villeneuve 5th, and De Angelis 6th. And Jean-Pierre Jabouille is out of the car. There's his orange helmet, and out of the race yet again. Lafitte. And Lafitte has either put on a spurt. We're watching the second place man now, Carlos Reutemann in front of him. Lafitte has either accelerated and put on a spurt, or Nigel Mansell has slowed down, because the gap, which was at one time down to 3 seconds between this man, number 26, Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot Matra in second place, and Nigel Mansell behind him in the Lotus 81, was down to 3 seconds, is now something like 10 seconds. So, although 28 laps, which is what it will be now, is a long way to go, I would hazard a guess that only mechanical unreliability is going to change the first 3 places. But look how dull it's getting. Now look at your monitors and you can see, and I can tell you that the reason for you having a much duller picture now is that there is a heavy rain cloud over Zolder now, and it is, that's Nigel Mansell going through. There is Watson, who is in 4th place, Villeneuve, who is in 5th in the Ferrari, and number 11 Elio De Angelis, who is 6th. There's Villeneuve 5th, De Angelis 6th, Watson ahead of them in 4th place. There's Watson. So it's getting to be a very close struggle for 4th place. Indeed, it has been for some time, but this is the first we've seen of it. And I can see from my commentary box that there are actually spots of rain, and I can see that because that water that you just saw is getting disturbed. You're getting that distinctive rippling when rain comes on it. It's very light rain, but we had a very big shower earlier on in the warm-up period this morning, which completely wetted the circuit. It came down totally unexpectedly, and it could happen again. And if it does, it will transform the race, because the drivers will then have to, and we're looking at now Villeneuve in 5th position in the pit lane there. Villeneuve in 5th position. And this is a bit of television trickery, because the television camera is looking at the monitors that are in the pits, and you can see all the runners for yourself there. Right down to, on the left, 14th position, and let's very after De Angelis, it's Chiva, Pironi and Giacomelli, and there are 24 runners one way or another as Carlos Reutemann goes through. And Reutemann was tactically brilliant, you will remember, in the earlier Grand Prix in Brazil, when he drove a superb race in wet conditions on the right tyres. And he was tactically brilliant in the South African Grand Prix, even more so when, unlike Nelson Piquet, he made a good tyre decision, as a result of which he won the South African Grand Prix, and Nelson Piquet finished 2nd in it. But there is a very definite possibility, and I can see all around me now spectators. I'm in a dry commentary box, but I can see spectators all around me putting up umbrellas. Those of them who've got hoods on their anoraks are also starting to put them up. They're worried about the weather. Past the water again. They won't be half as worried as Reutemann is, because Reutemann will probably be seeing, although it's not discernible, it's amazing. It's not discernible on the circuit. This as a visual aside, gives you an example of the toolkit that a mechanic has to have in Formula One Grand Prix racing. Very, very expensive tools, a lot of them. And I can tell you that on some of the circuits, you have to watch them very carefully. It's not the other mechanics that take them, but people take them for souvenirs. Carlos Reutemann. And look at the way, look how dull it is there. And that shot, Reutemann keeping very wide from the apex of the corners, in the lead, on his way, if he finishes in this position that he's in now, to his 3rd Grand Prix win of 1981, his 2nd championship win. Beautifully steady drive Carlos Reutemann has had. What a lot of experience this man's got. He's driven for Brabham, he's driven for Ferrari, he has driven for Lotus, and of course he drives for Williams. And now the battle between De Angelis and Villeneuve. Villeneuve in the Scarlet Ferrari. De Angelis in the Lotus, battling for 5th position, with John Watson ahead of them. No, they're not. They're past. They're past. John Watson is behind them. Villeneuve then is ahead of John Watson, and John Watson is only just ahead of the car behind him. Now let's have a very close look at this. In the lead, Reutemann. In 2nd position, Lafitte. In 3rd position, Mansell. So Villeneuve is up into 4th place. De Angelis is up into 5th position. John Watson is in 6th position, and right behind John Watson is Eddie Cheever in the Tyrrell in 7th position. 4th and 5th, Villeneuve and De Angelis. So the 2 Lotus 81s, the 2, and there goes Cheever. Cheever is ahead of Watson. Cheever is up into 6th position. John Watson must have something wrong with the Marlborough MP4. The marshal waving the blue flag to John Watson, to Cheever, saying, move over because John Watson wants to pass you. Little does he know that Cheever has just passed Watson. 4th and 5th, Villeneuve and De Angelis. Really stirring stuff at the end of the Belgian Grand Prix as Ghinzani comes through. De Angelis, very good driver. Eddie Cheever is pulling away from Watson and closing up on De Angelis. Well, it may not be much of a scrap for the 1st, the 2nd or the 3rd places, but there is the leader, but it certainly is for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, with 4 cars separated by only 3 seconds. 20 laps to go. That's the positions after 50 laps. We're beyond that now, of course. There goes Pironi. That is Giacomelli. Giacomelli's in 9th position and is about to be lapped by Carlos Reutemann. Now the rain is coming down. The umbrellas are going up as out of the pits goes Alboreto in the 2nd of the 2 Tyrrells. The rain is definitely coming down now. And you can see that this dull picture I've talked about is getting duller by the minute as Reutemann goes through to complete another lap, closing up on Bruno Giacomelli, who is in 9th position. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if and now look, you can see the water, the moisture glistening, see the different colour characteristics of the circuit, and Reutemann metaphorically tiptoeing round that corner. There's one thing that Carlos Reutemann's not going to do at this stage of the race, with about 15 laps to go around this 2.65 mile race, and that is to spin off. And I just saw a small plume of moisture coming up from the back of Reutemann's car, from his tyres there, as Lafitte goes through in 2nd position. Lafitte is quite secure in that 2nd position, and Nigel Mansell is equally secure in 3rd position. But believe me, the struggle for 4th place continues between Villeneuve and the wet tyre. There's wet tyres. I can't believe that anyone is going to come in, and that's the mechanic that's one of the Williams mechanics. I don't know what that strange flag is. It's certainly not the flag of Argentina. And up go the anorak hoods, on go the caps. This is going to be a very interesting 14 laps to go now, because they are going to have to make the agonising decision about whether to come in for the wet tyres, a pile of which we have just seen, or whether to go on the slick tyres, which are designed for dry running and risk spinning off the circuit. There is Reutemann. He's going to have to make his mind up. What? That's the checkered flag, and that's 55 laps. I cannot believe it. There's 15 laps to go and the race has been stopped. I can't. Surely the finishing flag official couldn't have. No, you can't possibly mistake 15 laps. I think as I bemusedly watch them come in, I think what must have happened is that the race has run 2/3 distance. That's the finishing order, and it confirms Lafitte 2nd, Mansell 3rd, Villeneuve 4th, De Angelis 5th, and Watson 6th. And I think they must have decided to stop the race at 2/3 distance, which they're entitled to do, and still give full World Championship points, because the rain is coming down and they do not want to risk any repetition of the pit lane accident which happened in practice, or of course that unfortunate mechanic being hit at the beginning of the race when it first started today. Well, this really is an absolutely sensational end to the Belgian Grand Prix. And Carlos Reutemann getting out of his car, staggering across the circuit, sitting on the Armco, has won. There are the World Championship points. Reutemann now leads by 12 points from Piquet, with Jones 4 points behind Piquet, and it looks as though Reutemann is on his way to be World Champion of 1981. Onto the podium. Not happy, of course. It hasn't been a happy Belgian Grand Prix for Carlos Reutemann. But another victory for the Argentine driver, and so ends a Belgian Grand Prix full of drama, excitement and tragedy, and which underlined Carlos Reutemann and the Williams team's supremacy this year. Can they keep it up at the next Grand Prix at Monaco? We'll know in 2 weeks' time.